Hello, survivors, and welcome to First Aid Spray, a Resident Evil podcast by fans for fans. This is episode 111 of the show, and we're yet again taking a look at Resident Evil 2, but perhaps the most obscure and certainly weirdest version of it, because it's the Chinese Manhua adaptation. My name is Sai, and I got a neck ache from reading this comic. I'll explain later. And joining me on the panel this week, the CIA tried to stop him being here, the US Army tried to stop him being here, a bridge tried to stop him here by collapsing, but he's here nonetheless. It's Fire Button Steve Valance.
Hi, everybody.
And riding into this podcast atop a giant Beyblade, it's James, a.k.a. Moist Owlet.
Hung!
Every episode of First Aid Spray is recorded live on Discord, so join our server now to become part of our fantastic community that includes Resident Evil diehards and newbies. If you'd like, you can support the show via our merchandise store or over at patreon.com/FA Spraypod for as little as $1 a month. All of this and all of our social media links can be found at our website, faspraypod.com. All right, let's start with the news. Steve, take us into the Resident Evil headlines, if you please.
Our first story. A new trailer for Zach Cregger's Resident Evil is dropped.
Yeah, it's come out a couple weeks ago now, so it's not exactly fresh in my mind, I must admit, but it was a more, I guess, focused look compared to the first trailer, which had a lot of stuff all over the place. This seemed to be concentrated on some of the early movie stuff, and I don't think, from where I'm sat and the perspective and the people that I followed, there was a lot of change in opinion. The people that were excited for it remain excited for it, and the people with certain criticisms of it, retain those criticisms. There was more conversation around the fact that now we're doing the kind of the PR part of leading up to the movie. Craig has done various interviews and stuff and talked about the sort of canon aspect of the movie and how early on he was saying, oh, this can be happening alongside Leon being in Raccoon City. Now he's absolutely backtracked on that and said, yes, actually, this is set in modern days. You're all correct. You have spotted it. There are iPhones in this movie. We have snow in Raccoon City, so on and so forth. That has definitely caused some discussion. Steve, how do you feel about the new trailer and where we're at in terms of the new film?
Okay, so generally speaking, pretty much on the same page as where I was before. In that I enjoyed Cregger's previous work. I'm looking forward to seeing this. However, the marketing, right? In the trailer itself, I'm so tired of this. Trailer starts now, and from the creator of this and this, there are more than one person has made this film. Come on, right? But the actual PR run up and the various quotes with Cregger, I kind of want to see the making of Resident Evil. Like I would want to see the movie around the making of this movie. I think that's going to be a much more thrilling experience because it's genuinely in interviews. It comes across as quite stressed and funny at the same time, and I like those kind of comedies. So yeah, but generally speaking, especially due to the nature of what we're going to be discussing today, the big canon question, as most of us already knew, wasn't really going to factor in. And believe me, when you get to the Manhua, canon don't mean much. All right, so just accept it for its own unique Cregger-verse Elseworlds tale, and you'll be fine. It looks fine so far. No real BOWs besides zombies and creepy door legs, though. Tease me with something else, just not lickers, please.
That was my issue before, and it remains my problem with it. Like, I'm kind of in the same spot you are, where it's like, I'm willing to give this a shot. In fact, I'm looking forward to it because I like his previous work. And I'm open to people playing with Resident Evil and doing their own spin on it, certainly. But it's just a shame to lose if we are gonna lose a lot of iconography. And in this trailer we get a typewriter, heavy field ammo, and the mention of Raccoon City. And if it is all just kind of the most obvious stuff like that, then it's a little bit disappointing. I would have liked to have seen some recognizable elements brought to life on the screen. I'm not looking for a one-for-one game adaptation kind of thing. It just seems like a bit of a missed opportunity. But they are obviously, Sony and Constantine and stuff are big on this. I don't think they're doing as much as they probably should be, considering the price that this film has cost to make. But they are obviously going on hard on it because, they've spent a lot of money getting Cregger into this, let alone anything else. So it'll be really interesting to see what the long-form impact this has on the series, in the same way that something like the Anderson films obviously had with their longevity. This will have an impact because of the sheer amount put into it. James, how are you feeling about the Creggerverse at the moment?
Open quotes. I'm an avid gamer. I love the first 2 Resident Evil games. My love letter to the franchise. But Resident Evil was one of the games that really affected me. So the chance to get to play in that world was really, really exciting for me. All 3 of these quotes were by 3 different directors. And none of them were Cregger.
Oh, no.
Right? So it's just like, to me, whenever I hear Cregger, this is why I think he's stressed in interviews. Because
yeah, sure.
I think he's been, and it's why, like, it's valid to be critical of his inconsistency, but I think this is wise, because, like, I think he's actually quite a genuine person, right? And he's probably being pushed to say these kind of buzzwords by Constantine. And it's like, because we hear these things all the time, and it's like, I really understand people's concerns, like, but it's just like, some of the best stuff we've ever had has been made by people that haven't actually directly touched the source material, you know, or have just had like a glance at it and gone, okay, I kind of get it, you know, I'm going to do my thing now, you know. And that's the thing that every director has done, like, since the inception of film as well. They've always wanted to create their own story, and sometimes it hits and sometimes it misses. But yeah, it just comes across to me every time I see him in an interview, always comes across to me like he's just stressed. Because, I mean, he said, I think one of his very first quotes is like, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, I'm probably going to catch flack for this no matter what I do, you know. And I think that is the most honest thing I've heard from any director of Resident Evil. Because, yeah, you literally cannot do anything within the fandom without upsetting people. But yeah, I still think that it's going to be an enjoyable movie, and, you know, time will tell if it will be a Resident Evil movie or not. We've just had so many at this point, which is another kind of valid, you know, criticism, because we just had so many that haven't, you know. I mean, well, I think the Resident Evil movies, the Paul W.S. Anderson movies, they made like 1.2 billion or something.
Yeah,
you know,
something like that. Yeah,
that's wild, you know, and they are heavily negatively reviewed, like those movies as well. But they were a success, no matter how much we didn't want them to be. But I think we're in better hands with Cregger,
absolutely,
than we were with Paul W.S. Anderson. It's like that's good to keep focus on, and yeah.
It'd be kind of interesting if this does lay a bit of a blueprint, whether or not he comes back for any sequels. Obviously, I imagine they're going to push for more after this. Is obviously not going to be the last we see of Resident Evil in the cinema, for the exact reasons you've just said. It's a franchise that has made $1 billion, so they're just going to keep making them now in various forms. I do think this will bring people in, film buff type people, if you want to call it that, for being that it's a Cregger vehicle, but also people, modern Resident Evil fans that haven't seen the old ones, or look at this and go, oh, this actually looks like scary, and it reminds me of stuff like 7 and whatever else. So whether or not they make any more, and I imagine they will, and if he's involved, it'd be interesting to see people use this as kind of the blueprint for other Resident Evil movies going forward, potentially, but we'll see what that blueprint actually shakes out as in September. In terms of the fan reaction, you're absolutely right. I'm sure he was vaguely aware of it, but it does seem like he probably wasn't prepared for quite the level of discussion around this game. That was probably the nicest way to put it. You know, that's what happens when you adapt an IP. I don't think you anticipate that the most ravenous fans are obviously going to be incredibly ravenous, and it just kind of is what it is. His take on, and I've seen lots of people defend it, where it's like, well, it's very clearly a Resident Evil movie because there's a character struggling to find ammo and reload and stuff like this. And I'm like, yeah, but you could say that about millions of games. That's not a thing that's exclusive to Resident Evil, and that's kind of the one little sore spot for me. I'd like to see stuff that is Resident Evil, not just a survival horror movie, but I am looking forward to watching a good survival horror movie, nonetheless.
I mean, we'd do a current era, like modern day Dead Space film that's not terrible.
That would be amazing, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Someone and I do another take on Alone in the Dark, because that franchise needs to reinvent itself every like 4 or 5 years in some fashion, I guess.
Our second news story then. The Resident Evil Death Island manga is finally getting an English translation.
Small one, but relevant, I guess, because we're doing some comic stuff today. We haven't talked about this in a little while. But yeah, I think it was around the time that the film was actually announced and released back in 2023, I think it was. that they will be doing a manga alongside it as well. It got translated into German a few years ago, but yes, it is finally getting an English translation, which speaks to the popularity of the series, that they think it's worth doing that. But that's very exciting for us as a podcast series that covers the comic books. So yeah, you can now find that online. I think Titan Comics is doing just the general English translation, so you can find it on their website. Various links through to your region where you can purchase it from. Currently, you can purchase Volume 1. What exactly that amounts to isn't clear at all, so I guess we'll find out when it arrives, and maybe we'll talk about that. And when the full series, however many volumes that is, shakes out to be, lands, we'll be doing a full podcast on it, of course. So just to make everyone aware, if you want to check out the Death Island manga, your opportunity is finally coming, and follow along with us so that when we do the podcast, you know what we're talking about, I guess. Anyone got any thoughts on this one? It's more of just a headline than a discussion, I guess.
So is this a manga that's currently ongoing, or is it concluded in Japan?
I actually will check that now. I'm going to assume it's concluded if it launched in 2023, but I will double check that.
Because, like, if it's just a one-shot or a small collection like Infinite Darkness was, I hate to say it, my hopes aren't high for it being a certified banger. But, I'll give it a go, But yeah, other than that, if it's still ongoing, that's amazing, because it was at one point, like you say, a tie-in manga. If it's not ongoing, fair enough, expected. But we will do our quote unquote due diligence as a Resident Evil podcast, not the Resident Evil podcast, but
a Resident Evil podcast.
Yeah,
it's it finished just under a year's worth of publishing. So there's a slightly weirdly numbered. There's episode 1. Episode 0, and then 1 through 6, 2 episode 7s and 2 episode 8s. So there's a dozen or so issues. It took about a year to be published in Japan. So whether that splits into 2 or 3 volumes or whatever, we don't know. But it is a concluded storyline, and I believe it's not just a complete adaptation. There is new content and new scenes around Death Island that are inserted in there. I haven't looked too deeply into it, frankly, because I was kind of like hoping for the English translation so that we can cover it. So it is a bit of a mystery to me, I will admit.
I'm excited for it, yeah.
So our final news story, I'm sure somewhere some pearls are being clutched, because Resident Evil 2 Remake is now the overall best-selling game in the franchise.
It's an episode of First Aid Bro, because we're talking about sales numbers again, which now puts it as well, for what it's worth, the second best-selling game of all time when it comes to Capcom releases. It's not only is it leapfrogged Resident Evil 7, it's also a better seller than Monster Hunter Rise, and puts it just slightly under Monster Hunter World. So if you don't have the Capcom Platinum page up, just so if you want to hear the numbers, Monster Hunter World 22.4 million, Resident Evil 2 19.7. So it's not a massive gap either, so it's entirely possible that it gets to the number 1 spot one day. But the big headline is that it is now not just a better seller than Resident Evil 7. It has knocked Resident Evil 5 and all of its ports as the overall best Resident Evil selling product off the top, which is cool, because whether or not I obviously have issues with the remake that over time have kind of hardened. Was softer on at the time, and now I'm kind of like, well, it's not a perfect game. I am still happy to see a modern Resident Evil title, and one that is built around the things that I love personally most about in the series, getting to be the top spot. So I do think that it paints a nice bright picture of where we are right now with Resident Evil and where we're building to as well. James, what do you make of RE2 being the best seller?
It's a remake that sailed 1,000 ships.
Yeah, absolutely it did. Yeah.
After that game came out, man, everybody wanted to reimagine like what we knew and wanted to go for like progress. It kind of like, I think it inspired so many developers and by proxy publishers. I guess you get a mention. But yeah, to do their own kind of thing, and it's like really, yeah, it's I've also like over the last couple of years, I've realized kind of especially since we did our retrospective of it. I've hardened on some things, but overall, I always have fun with that game, and I always go back to it and enjoy my time with it. And it is so good. So Yeah, and I can't wait for Resident Evil 3 Remake to become the 4th best-selling game.
Any thoughts on RE2R at the top spot?
Honestly, like as a, even if you take away the story, as a mechanically foundational experience, it's a great entryway for anybody in the Resident Evil franchise nowadays. It doesn't play like the OGs, which it's enough in similarity that you can get by for that kind of old school terror and fatigue and stress, but it's not action heavy all the time, so you can look around, poke about. It's on that front, I think it deserves the top spot alone because it's such a nice wide cast of the whole like series in one small locus. There's like weird storyline changes that upset people. A and B scenarios completely naffed up, but then you've also got For Survivor is probably the best iteration of For Survivor compared to its entire lineage. So all is hand waved and all is forgiven because Hulk is cool.
And the free DLC as well. Oh, I was always happy about that. I know it's not amazing, but it's cool that it's there.
The Ghost Survivors, we got more Kendo, and he also has one of the best themes in the entire series. Pretty neat.
Yeah. Pretty neat. So well done to Resident Evil 2 Remake and all of its team, who, of course, are the team developing the next Resident Evil game as well. They've gone from this to Resident Evil 4 Remake, which is also pretty high up. It's the 3rd overall best-selling Resident Evil game, and now they're moving on to the next remake as well, which looks to be, I imagine will be joining all of the RE Engine games up near the top of the Capcom bestsellers list. So we say it all the time, but we are in certainly a very exciting time when it comes to Resident Evil and its popularity. But for today's main show discussion, we are going to be going to a time when Resident Evil was somewhat in its infancy, and it was the Wild West, and people were figuring out what exactly Resident Evil meant. You wouldn't get this kind of adaptation now, that's for sure. It's the Chinese manhwa of Resident Evil 2, or, of course, Biohazard 2. And now, reading the file Restaurant Owner's Diary from Resident Evil Survivor, Josephina Parkin, who you can find on Blue Sky at Josephina P.
October 4th, 1998. I heard an unbelievable story. A small town in America, Raccoon City, was destroyed last week. They said that all the residents turned into zombies, and the city is now completely deserted. Umbrella Inc. is rumoured to be behind the incident, but I don't know the details. Although the incident occurred far from here, across the sea, I can't help but feel anxiety if Umbrella is truly behind it. I hope that this city will be okay. October 6th, 1998. I heard another interesting story. This one is about William Birkin, who supposedly destroyed Raccoon City. He was the creator of the virus called T or G or whatever. He tried to use the virus for his own purposes. Unbelievable as it may seem, he injected the virus into his own body and turned into a monster. Also, the virus leaked into the sewer, and it is rumoured that rats spread the virus around the entire city. October 8th, 1998. What should I do? One of the umbrella workers who came here for lunch mentioned that the T-virus is on this island. He said that there's no possibility that an accident could occur here in this city, but I'm not too sure. I decided to work for Umbrella because of the money, but now I've grown tired of opening my restaurant for only umbrella workers. There is nothing new or interesting left for me in this town. I guess it's time to get out of here before it's too late.
So this is one of our many comic club episodes, and we do our best to explain the comics as we go with these, because I know not everybody has read them, especially the case with stuff like this. We've covered most of, if not all of, the English released comics at this point. The most recent one being that we did a little while back, other than real recent releases, as we said in the news, like Infinite Darkness, was the Code Veronica manhwa, which was the only manhwa to get released outside, well, not outside of China, but get released in England, in English. This one never did, but thankfully over at projectumbrella.net, thanks to the folks there, and in particular Luna Indie Studios, BSA Arclay, and RE and Evil, for putting together a fan translation of Biohazard 2, which allows us to take part in this weird part of Resident Evil history and also to make a podcast on it. Because this is definitely one of those weird niche things that I imagine most people haven't experienced. I think this was the first time for all of us experiencing it, and it is a wild ride. This is published by King's Fountain, not Tinghansi Publishing. Biohazard 2 is actually the only manhwa which was made by King's Fountain before Tinghansi took over and did Resident Evil 3, Code Veronica, and I think 0 as well. It was released weekly from February 98 to April 99. Yes, weekly, which means there are 60 issues overall with an average 30-something pages. So it's not a small thing. And frankly, when we put this together, we were like, yeah, we'll just do the lot. And then I looked at these 60 issues and I was like, I don't know if we can do this. And Steve had the clever idea to cut this in half. So we are going to be doing the first half of Biohazard 2. And we'll pick this back up down the line if we feel like there is an interest in it or something that we want to cover. So we'll be looking at the first half of the comic, which covers 2 arcs. One is Resident Evil 2, one is not. So,
what do you mean? What do you mean? Huh?
I guess before we get into that, then let's judge a series not necessarily by its cover, but by its artwork. Let's talk about the art of the manhwa before we start getting into story stuff and get really off the leash. What do we all think of the way that Biohazard 2 looks throughout its covers and the 30 issues that we've read? James, let's start with you. How did you feel about the visuals on this one?
It's just nice to see handcrafted illustrations again.
Yeah.
Like, there was so much texture. There's so much texture. Everything is so emotive. It wants to draw you right. And you were saying this is weekly? That's incredible.
Yeah.
Like these were put out like the colors are really poppy, the movements are super dynamic. And like there are some moments in the first 29 because we did the first 29 issues.
That's 29, sorry, not 30. You're right.
Yeah, which are the first 2 arcs. But yeah, like there are moments where it was kind of hard to figure out what was happening. At times, but they were really rare, and also I'll go into this in the next section, but some of the watermarks made it confusing sometimes as well. But yeah, there are tons of homages to throughout the comics, like Berserk's. I don't know if anybody knows what I mean when I say this, but the high velocity panels that were in black and white, like they have a few of those panels where a lot of speed lines are used, you know. And yeah, like there were also, I noticed, and I wasn't sure how I thought about them at first, but there are also a lot of neon colors used to introduce an issue. I noticed, or sometimes they would introduce a certain part in the comic. Which I really liked. I wasn't sure how I thought at first. I was like, why is it so colorful the first few pages? But then but then I was like, oh no, it's trying to invite you in. It's trying to really make you look at the page, right? And I really liked it. Like overall, it's incredible artwork that was really consistent throughout the whole thing. Like nowadays with comics, I mean, it was the same thing back then, but nowadays you were often from issue to issue, you would see different artists and different inkers, like between the different issues, and it would definitely break up your immersion into a story, what they were trying to tell and what was on the page. But these were very consistent throughout these 29 issues that were weekly. I can't believe that. That's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's such a, and also as well, I imagine everyone noticed this as well at the beginning. You've got like the credits as you do in comics, where it's like, this is where this is by. To think that it's the same group of people through every issue every week is like, the workload must have been crazy to get this turned out every week. And it was actually kind of alluded to, I think, in some of it as well. There's a couple of lines where it's like, we promised this will launch on next Saturday, which to me, like, maybe they missed a day every occasionally. And It's funny, yeah. No, I don't want to go too deep down a different rabbit hole, but it is kind of there's something sort of heartwarming about that, where it's like human error. It happens sometimes. If you're trying to put something together weekly like this, it's quite something. And one of the notes I have, is that the artwork was really consistent. I remember when we did Code Veronica, we got a lot of laughs out of the artwork being kind of jarring and a bit all over the place sometimes. But this, not so much, because, it was largely like done by the same couple of people. But, as you said, plenty of variety as well. Like, while people always looked generally like correct and how they were supposed to, there were these pages with like some great like color washes and stylization to them, and really interesting use of shadow and stuff like that. Big fan of the art in this one, definitely. Steve, how you feel about the art?
Pretty much echoing everybody else's sentiments, and especially the sheer volume that this must be to make these kind of like 30 something pages, full color. I think there's like a handful of black and white pages, but not many. We're talking like maybe the odd vague recap where it's all monochromatic. Most characters are on model. Some seem to be borrowing models from other franchises as different characters. But that's fine. That's fine. I get it. So you have an idea and a reference to work with. Generally speaking, no real complaints at all. You can see how it mostly evolves over time. In the first issue, for example, feels a little bit more, I don't want to say American, but that kind of color gradients to it. And then eventually if it settles into its own rhythm, a few more issues in, which is, really cool to see, especially like the gore. And the violence is definitely not toned down. I think in the initial issue as well, like the first thing it says, Liquor, what's my note to say? Liquor absolutely earning its reputation in a single move, impaling and obliterating a skull with its accompanying viscera. Grotesque but amazing. And that's just the baseline Liquor. There's other BOWs as well. Question mark.
Really?
I don't know if they call they're called BCs in this. So
right.
Yeah.
BCs like the robot. It's a bunch of BCs. I did go to tack on to the end of like kind of the gore thing. Actually disappointed me a little bit because I imagine because of maybe some laws or whatever, but you could see the gore on the page, but it wasn't bloodied. Like they would like in a lot of it was censored, and it wouldn't be like you would see the tongue go through the skull, but there would be no blood. It would just be a white or off-white kind of color, which I kind of understand in a way, but I would have liked that more immersive blood color. But as you can't ask for everything. You could definitely see what was happening on the page.
One thing that I did enjoy about it, I will say, is, and I mean this again, like sincerely, the occasional bit of bad English that's in the artwork that didn't get translated, because obviously, especially early on, it's set in America and those American characters. So there's the occasional sweet moment where there's like a vehicle that turns up or whatever it is, or there's some kind of building with US Army written on it, but it's spelled USAMRY. I was like, it's very sweet. Yeah, it's very sweet to me. But yeah, no, like Steve, you kind of alluded to some stuff there where it's like the black and white. Sometimes it was like really well used because it'd be like black and white backgrounds with colored in characters on top, or vice versa. When you enter the main hall for the first time in the RPD, Claire and Leon are black and white sketches against this like ink painting of the front hall, which looked incredible. When Ada enters into the comic for the first time, she's like this dark green shadow against everyone else being all fully colored in. Stuff like that was genuinely well thought through. There was some really good framing. Every now and then, I didn't notice a lot of it throughout, but early on, and I don't know if it's because I was looking at it and or just appreciating the fact that we were drawing from something that I recognized, but there was some really great framing when Irons talks about the mayor's daughter and decapitating her completely, which is obviously a line directly from the game. There is a panel that is just a view of the deer bust on his wall, and I was like, it's really good. That's just really good, what a great little idea. And to that end as well, it's just really cool throughout those early runs to see them redraw iconic game locations, often from the camera angle that you know them from the game, of course, because as was mentioned, you're drawing from a source that way and you can get it out quicker, I suppose. But it was really nice to see like a sketchy version of the main hall, the briefing room, the hallway outside of it. Even the office in the lab where you go and take Sherry when you're playing as Claire and put her down on the bed. Some of the sewer locations were immediately recognizable, etc. I really appreciated that, obviously, as a huge fan of Resident Evil 2. I'm greedy. I wish there was more of it. I would love to have seen stuff like the library. We got out of the RPD far too quick for me. I would have loved to have seen more of it because I thought the artwork was so nice, and I would love to have seen essentially every room in it. But yeah, that's me. That's me being greedy. My only other notes on the presentation side is this is kind of a story thing, but mostly I take it from a visual thing. I appreciate the fun in an adaptation where they actually go, what can we do that's cool to look at? There's a sandpit here. Let's not just do exactly what's on screen. Let's do our own thing and give people buying into this comic book who have played the game something like a sort of like dream matchup or whatever. So early into the run, you see the Tyrant versus the alligator. The completely original thing. Don't think we've seen it anywhere. It's kind of mad, but like, hell yeah, that's cool, you know. Later on, not to spoil it too much, Leon and Chris are together in a team and with an uneasy alliance, and they're shouting at each other. It's a cool thing to see, those two characters. Obviously, we'd get that in a game 14 years later in Resident Evil 6. But very clearly, they thought about this and was like, it would be really cool if these two guys kind of butted heads a little bit. And I really appreciate that about it. One thing I also appreciated, but didn't actually take time to read, I will admit, every issue had like a gun profile.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Extra artwork, full page art of characters, BOW breakdowns, like a gun thing, which wasn't all that interesting to me, but it's cool that it's in there and it shows you that, you know, they had passion for this kind of thing. There's even earnest notes from the creator every now and then. Like I say, it said, oh, we'll try and get the next one in on time or whatever. Free gifts and all this stuff were mentioned. You could kind of feel the excitement that the creators had putting this together. Steve, you made a noise. Not a fan of the gun profiles?
It's like it was cute the first 2 or 3 issues, but by issue 15, all of a sudden, I'm like, how many pistols are there that we need to talk about that these aren't in the game? Like, okay, that's cool. You have a passion for this, but also I think they got a bit stiff because by the end of the 29 we did, they do drop. I've noticed that the gun profiles mysteriously disappear.
Right. Oh, that's not reading them, so I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
Fair. Any more thoughts on the presentation overall before we move on, James?
Yeah, to talk more about kind of the sketchy stuff. You would have these profiles near the front of the Manhua, which I think Claire had one. Mister had one, the Tyrant had one, but they were more like the game's models, but they were more in a sketchy concept art style, and I really loved that because there's a lot of detail on the page as well. Like they were describing an awful lot on the page. Those were the ones I also didn't really invest too much in the gun pages, but when it started to explain kind of the individual BOW or the character in a kind of how would you call it, like a rundown or lowdown kind of way, where
character profile.
Yeah, like it also, obviously we got foresight here, so we don't know if it would have been a good spoiler or not, and the thing is, times were different back then, but I kind of liked that really early in the comic we got a taste of what they were thinking about for the future with those armors, you know, the armor stuff. That Leon and Claire were wearing, and they were like kind of describing what they were and what they did. Which was good because it was good context, because otherwise, I mean, a lot of it did make sense anyway, but it was nice that we had those things to go, oh, okay, so that's why they can do this and this, you know, and this is why they're a special secret force. And yeah, it kind of had that foreshadowing there in that armor. Because I remember when I first saw it, I was like, why? What is this? I don't get it. There's no context here. But when we got into that second arc, I kind of understood.
Any more thoughts on the presentation overall before we move on?
Yeah. Once you see a Super Tyrant wearing an American flag as a shroud, you can't help but feel like Capcom missed a trick.
Yeah.
Captain Mister.
Cool. Captain Mister.
Captain Mister Killer of Killers, who previously one-shotted the crocodile god.
Yep.
The crocodile god. That's so funny.
It's so there are some amazing names in this. But yes, generally speaking, aesthetically, there are some things that once you've seen, your mind will be blown as to the possibilities. And then sometimes you're like, wait a minute, that colour scheme's all wrong. Why does Claire have that? Why is Leon and why are they all wearing Chris's outfit?
Why are they wearing blue? Yeah. I had that as well. Yes, definitely. Oh, lots to get into, definitely. Before we start talking about the story, one last thing, it's kind of been mentioned there, is just opening space up for notes on the fan translation as well, just for what it's worth. Because it'll be hard for us to talk about the writing in this, because this is made by people who did this unpaid for the love of it to supply it to the community. So I'm not going to go too hard into my criticism of it or anything like that, because I'm thankful that it's here and everybody has a different take on how to do these things. I think there's some really interesting choices in here. Some I agree with, some maybe less so. It's worth noting that the fan translation, I just mentioned the mayor's daughter, explicitly calls her Catherine Warren, which I thought was very interesting, because I had to check. I was like, did the manhwa call her Catherine? And I thought it was the remake that gave her that name. And what? And well, no, they chose that for the fan translation. In the Chinese version, she's referred to as Amy Chan. And I was like, oh, okay. So they've just swapped that out, because now we know the name of that character is Catherine, and we didn't have that until 2019. I was like, that'd be so weird if that's where they drew that from. And I didn't know that after all this time. But the thing about that is if you're going to change something like that, why aren't you changing all of it? For me, you either do nothing or everything. So it's really weird to change Amy Chan to Catherine Warren, but then keep stuff like throughout they're referring to it as the G bacteria and the T bacteria instead of the virus. I'm not a huge fan of the inconsistency there. I do sort of understand it, because the viruses work differently throughout this run as it goes on. So maybe that's the logic for it. But for me, I was a little bit thrown off by the inconsistency. There was one line in here that was like, this must be directly like they just like literally translated it. And obviously it wasn't without its mistakes, and there's a lot of text in here to translate. So again, I'm not going to nitpick that. But at the high emotions of Ada's death at the end of Resident Evil 2, Leon is described as shedding out of his person suit, which I thought was like, what on earth series of words is that? That would probably be something that I would have changed if I was translating it personally. But it did make me laugh out loud, so I guess it doesn't get that point. James, any thoughts on the fan translation?
Well, I mean, my thoughts are going to mostly come to how things looked on the page. My experience was mostly seamless. And like BSA Arclay and Luna Indy did an incredible job here. Like there are moments, however, where the fonts are really hard to read, and the text is so small that it was really hard for me to focus. But they were rare, like they weren't like too difficult. It's just like, and this manhwa likes to repeat itself a lot. So like it wasn't too difficult to keep up. But I think probably the thing that I struggled with most though were the watermarks that were placed over whole text bodies sometimes, or several, and sometimes they'd be page after page. And unfortunately, I didn't realize this till after, but I was reading it purely through the projectumbrella.net website, which meant I was limited on magnification features. I was reading it on my tablet. And I didn't notice till after, but you could have downloaded the whole thing.
Wait, you can?
Yes. Yeah, you can. It says there's a Chinese to English RAR file, and you'd have to kind of organize them yourself. But under every issue, there's a downloadable thing. And I wish I knew that, because I would have, because there's no magnification options on the actual reader on the website. And it would have helped me a ton if I knew that.
You've hit the thing for me. That is why I said in the intro that this comic hurt my neck, is because I was sat at my desk, like leaning forwards at times to try and read the text. Because as you say, on the website, you can't magnify it. It's not set up for that. And, at certain points in this week, I was sat in my desk chair you know those neck cushions you buy when you fly?
Yeah.
I've been wearing one of those this week, so they're extra cushion when I'm reading this damn comic. I'm putting the work in. That's all I'm saying. And I'm sacrificing myself for this.
Yeah.
What kind of browsers are you like? I just hit F11 and then I could like hold Control Plus or Control Minus and zoom it. Oh well.
Well,
okay.
But I mean, my magnify wasn't working. I don't know why.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it just wasn't working. It's like normally, I mean, normally I'm used to like, you can just click it and it will, magnify, or I'll press my Control Plus and it will magnify. But yeah, it just wasn't working for me. But yeah, if we get into the 30 plus issues for the next one, then I would definitely be downloading everything because I did download everything, and after like today actually, just to check it, I did download and I was able to zoom in on everything.
There you go.
So we could do that. But otherwise, yeah, there were some typos, but I followed it pretty well. Of course, like people who are reading this, you have to bear in mind that you have to read from the right to the left.
Of course.
It's not like Western comics. And I know that a couple of people who I was talking to about this got confused because they were a bit confused by the first couple of pages. Like, none of this is making sense, right? It's like, you have to read, and it takes some getting used to, but you have to read from the right to the left. And I like that. It was, you mentioned earlier on, Sai, about kind of some things were inconsistent. I like with the lore of stuff and names being put in. I wonder if it's because they were trying to keep it as genuine as possible while adding. Yeah, while adding just like little snippets, like, well, this is what we've got confirmed as, and yeah, they might have kept like the G bacteria and the T bacteria because that's what it's known as in China, So it's, it might be that way. But overall, really enjoyed the translation.
Steve, any thoughts on the fan translation?
I do not speak an absolute lick of Chinese or Mandarin or Cantonese, so I am just genuinely grateful that it even exists to be able to enjoy this story. In all its twists and turns and insanity, the fact that we can at least like, even if it's only like a halfway house amateur translation or whatnot, I'm not sure as to these people's skill set. It is more than adequate enough for me to enjoy the story. Yes. And for that, I'll be forever grateful.
Yeah.
Other than my brain having to rewire how I read things, like James already said, we go from right to left. Generally speaking, from an accessibility standpoint, cannot fault it. Unlike my colleagues, I apparently could zoom in and not hurt my neck, which is go me. Yes.
Congratulations, Steve, you have a neck.
Yeah, too right. Generally, because of my lack of like knowledge of the language, I have to take what I'm given, and I'm perfectly fine with what I've been given.
Mm-hmm. Last note on this, I want to shout out to our shout out as well. The really clever, fun thing through many of the issues of this, particularly the early ones, where of course they've scanned and translated the like ads and bits and bobs that were in the original issues, but then they've spliced in modern day ads as well. And I was very tickled by looking through these and recognizing many of our friends in, as Steve has mentioned, the Resident Evil podcast, Crimson Head, many people who have been on the show, YouTube channels and such and so forth. And then I was very pleasantly surprised to see us in, I think it's issue 18 or something like that, First Aid Spray in there, which I don't know if I've forgotten this conversation or if it was ever had, but yeah, we are immortalized in the fan translation of Biohazard 2. So shout out to Luna Indie Studios. I don't remember approving that ad artwork, but I'll let you off because I quite liked it. I would have approved it if you'd sent it my way. But yes, it was very sweet. So it's nice. Obviously, we do our own little thing, and we do work with various people in the community, and sometimes we appear on their stuff, and that's always the nice thing where it's like you feel a little bit more connected to what's going on when other people bring you into their worlds and put you in front of their audience. And to stumble across this years after it was published with our old logo, of course, in here, it was quite a bit of a nice moment and be like, oh yeah, we're part of the English community, and we always will be now. Even if I nuke the podcast, I can't get rid of that. I'm not going to nuke the podcast, by the way. Wait. Right, let's do it. Let's talk about the story. I'm going to prepare myself here because I'm going to give you all a synopsis of the first arc of the Manhua, which is the first 14 issues or so. So I have written my own kind of very sort of brief and yet somehow 6 or 7 paragraph long synopsis of the story. So please bear with me as I sum up to you the plot for Biospace Hazard 2's take on Resident Evil 2. Leon S. Kennedy gets a job in the RPD, leaving his squad in the Special Forces Unit, the SFU, located out of the city, behind. As he arrives, he hears about riots on the radio and steps out of his squad car to immediately grapple with a licker. He bumps into Claire and they head to the Raccoon City police station where they meet Marvin Branagh, who zombifies, and Ada Wong in quick succession. Claire is separated when they encounter Chief Irons, and she meets Sherry down in the sewer. So far, so good, I guess. The Tyrant, who is now a mech soldier, is dispatched into the city. Alongside this, we also see a flashback to Birkin's death. He's executed by the Umbrella Spy. He's executed by the Umbrella Spy, Brian Irons, and his UBSF team, which stands for Umbrella Special Forces, basically the USS. Even though, whatever. Outside the city limits, Leon's SF youth squad are keen to get into Raccoon City to assist him, but are stopped by a bridge collapsing and interference from the CIA and their US Army superior, who is secretly connected to Umbrella via its CEO, who is called God. Umbrella in this series is a corporation with a kind of ranking system with agents like Irons on the bottom. Ada Wong is his superior. We work upwards through the mech soldiers, like the Tyrant, commanders, and finally God at the top of this sort of like 7-step chain. God mentions that Birkin's G-Virus wasn't a unique creation, but a refinement of a natural element that Umbrella believes comes from an ancient civilization, or even the actual God himself. Instead of the G-Virus, as in the original game, Umbrella wants to remove the vaccine from the city for themselves. Leon and Ada are reunited with Sherry and Claire in the sewer, and eventually Leon's squad makes their way to their position after going rogue and calling in a favour for armaments. G appears and clashes with the Super Tyrant, who remembers his past as a US Marine and reveals himself to be Mr. the King of Killers, and he starts speaking English. Charlie, the leader of Leon's team, suspects that there's a mole in the group. Ada offers to be searched, and when her earpiece is discovered, she snatches Sherry and runs. Meanwhile, Chris, Barry, and Jill, and yes, this is a real thing, meet with President Clinton to weigh in on Raccoon City and request a special task force of their own. They arrive in Raccoon to accost the Umbrella CEO God, but they find him dead, surrounded by poisoned sycophants. On board the train in the underground lab, Ada is killed by her superior, the Apex Warrior, who has uneasy feelings about Leon that he can't quite explain. G reappears and Leon saves Sherry and throws himself at it. He's rescued by the group and Raccoon City is destroyed. This is the end of the first arc in the series. I don't think it's ever explicitly given a name. They refer to the War of Raccoon City a few times, so maybe we call it the War of Raccoon City arc. But that's the sort of first 14 issues that cover the plot of the video game in its own kind of way. So let's talk about how we feel about how it adapts the story, what it does differently, how we feel about that, and so on and so forth. I just quickly want to make my first point before I pass it over, because I know I've done a lot of talking. I will say the first impression in issue 1 I thought was quite brilliant, frankly. It starts with Leon walking through the streets talking about how the police don't have fear and that his confidence comes from the gun in his hand. And then we smash cut to that street at the start of the game filled with zombies, and he regretfully says, with 18 bullets. And I thought instantly, this gets what makes Resident Evil great at the time. Like, I was like, yeah, they've totally understood the assignment here. I wrote this note down before I'd read the rest of the series. So hold on to your butts. But I thought that was a great first impression, at least. Steve, how do you feel about the Resident Evil 2 portion of the Resident Evil 2 Manhua?
Generally speaking, there are times when it's going off the rails into its own thing that I actually was getting a little frustrated on initial reading, because I was like, when do I get to the Resident Evil 2 part of this Resident Evil 2 manga? Manhwa, sorry. There are a lot of new characters, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, everybody. The entirety of Leon's, before joining the police department special forces unit, pretty much are like pastiches of other super badass like 80s action heroes or anime characters. Like one of them, Baidu, or as he literally is just Bato from Ghost in the Shell if he was dumb. It's just literally just like take a transplant. He's even got the eyes, like totally. That stuff, my eyes started to glaze over at times. But then it jumps back into cool stuff like Brian Irons being a conniving evil man with his own squadron of flunkies. Ooh, why is Cobra Commander here? And various other bits, and they all have lore. It goes places. Like we'll get there, but the initial impression on the Resident Evil side of things, especially in issue 1, I was stoked because, as we've already said, it like replicates scenes and imagery from like the backgrounds of the game. Even mentions, for example, 18 bullets. I believe the gun, little like details on the gun, is Leon's gun from RE2 as well, the VP-70. It's all very much on the nose. You get a Licker doing what would be the helicopter crash in the game. The two cops on the top roof. Instead, it's a Licker annihilating them before it goes for Leon, and it's just it's amazing. But then the other stuff starts happening.
And famously, of course, that Licker thing you guys talked about it in the artwork, where it like pierces through a guy's cheek. Now, I don't know if that's a coincidence, but there is that one guy in the former Licker hallway in Remake 2 who is dead, and you pull at his head, don't you? And his cheek's been split open. That famous zombie that's in RE2, RE3, and Requiem. He's been in more games than most characters at this point. And it happens almost instantly in the manhwa. Like it's in, I think, even issue 1, maybe issue 2. It's very early in. That's very, very funny. I'm with you for the most part. Yeah, like I was kind of intrigued by some of the micro and macro changes that they've done with the timeline. Like Iron himself executes Birkin after Birkin has already taken the injection of the G bacteria, as it's called. So, and that takes place after the outbreak has started as well, I think, by the looks of things. So that's all completely different. As is my understanding of this is that Raccoon City, obviously in the video game series, we kind of know is the beginning of biohazard warfare in the world being kind of opened up and is seen by the public and the effects of it and so on and so forth. But the comic sort of tells us that it's been happening since sometime after the Cold War, and just kind of we're not used to it, but these are more regular occurrences throughout the world, which is why the army has this rapid response unit for these kind of outbreaks and containing them, and they rock up outside the city and they have procedures and stuff, which I thought was a really interesting take. Why not? Why not do that? There's no reason why we couldn't do that. There's a line as well as part of that sort of side story that's going on outside of the Raccoon City incident, where somebody says, I didn't say, but they've essentially come to the point of, we're waiting for Umbrella to okay us like carpet bombing this, because if we swan in and do this, then we're affecting the global economy because they're a massive corporation, which is a painfully realistic thing to say in a comic series where monsters get sad because they miss being human. And like that's the whiplash of that was quite something. I've got notes all over the place, so I won't go into them right now. But I'm with you, Steve. Issues 6 to 8 in particular were a bit of a slog because it focuses more on the original characters. Do Not Steal in the army, CIA and the Umbrella, which most of the CIA stuff amounts to basically nothing. And to me, it felt like they realized they rushed the Resident Evil 2 stuff and had to sort of drag it out a bit elsewhere. But
the two Chinese CIA agents, the brothers, for some reason, my brain immediately went to Die Hard with the two FBI agents who completely mullock it up, called Johnson and Johnson. Like, because I think they're like Sun Jian or something like that, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they literally, spoilers for the manhwa, everybody, they go in and they get completely smashed to bits. Like they achieve zero. They stonewall the Leon's not Section 9 buddies from going in to save him, or at least attempted to save Leon. Leon didn't need to save him, let's be real. And they get completely blown to pieces, practically. I don't know if they show up after where we got to in the manga, but they said they didn't show up in the second arc. So I'm going to assume they just died.
Yeah, considering the sort of we've had like time jumps and stuff from what we've read, so it would be weird to go back to that now. But yeah, for every few moments, every now and then, where there's a cool, weird take on Resident Evil 2 that I'm enjoying, like seeing all the 4 characters together and Tyrant fighting G1 and stuff. You also have a huge unit of dudes appear, a bridge collapses, some guy who looks like Spawn shows up. Even when the Resident Evil 2 stuff is weird, it's cool to look at. But then there are just parts where it's just like, what am I reading again? Well, I feel like we haven't had Resident Evil stuff for pages and pages and pages or issues, which is kind of a shame. James, how do you feel about the Resident Evil 2 arc?
Those two men in those 2 suits, there are a lot of there's so many, too many to count, pages where I burst out laughing.
I've got a few of those, yeah.
But the page that made me burst out, that page to do with them that made me burst out laughing, was when I saw both of them getting their crap pushed in, and it was when they were in APCs in their full suits in wartime, you know. Like, it's like, no, we need you to understand that these people are these people. Like, because you remember you saw them in their suits before? Yeah, now they're in wartime in their suits. And by the way, they started the fight, you know, and they're in suits. You know, it's very funny. But yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, so when it comes to the story, it's really hard to pass the actual RE2 sections of this manhwa until you see, like, those familiar landmarks, like the West Office, the sewers, the characters. They were my favorite part. When you saw those, like, oh, you know, you're Leo pointing.
Yeah.
You know, the story is really light-footed with the game story.
That's a good way to put it.
Like, but it really, I mean, it still feels familiar for the first 13 to 15 issues, maybe. And I'm being very optimistic there, because I feel like after 10 it kind of goes wild. Yeah, but you have some crazy stuff that's kind of thrown in that would just, yeah, as I said earlier, just made me burst out laughing as I read. You know, genuine laughter that I was enjoying what was on the page, and I just forgot that it was Resident Evil.
Yeah,
you know, like there were so many, but you mentioned when President Bill Clinton. An entire page panel.
I know, he gets like a full face, like, here he is. Doesn't even look like him, but fair enough.
By the way, never mentioned again. Like, after, well, he is a little bit, but like not, you know, to a great degree. The US is mentioned. I had to put it down for a few minutes out of pure joy. Like, I just seen President Bill Clinton, you know, and even his, like, the controversy with him.
That's what I was going to say. There's even a character that's like, we can put some, like, leverage on him because he's going through a scandal. And I had to open up Wikipedia and check when the Monica Lewinsky scandal was, and that's what they're referring to.
I think they mentioned directly the secretary, something with his secretary.
Oh my god.
Yeah, they mentioned in it. You know, oh yeah, I had to put it down. I had to kind of pause for a moment. It was just too silly. And it was at that point where I realized what I was reading. You know, it was that I was like, okay, I understand what this is now. You know, I mean, some of it could be taken seriously, but a lot of it couldn't. You know, you had Sherry casting a globe of invulnerability.
Oh,
you know,
a delicious biscuit of protection. Just,
you know, you had Claire. And did you know, guys, that Claire wears Lancome perfume?
Oh no, I didn't. I didn't read.
Yeah,
that.
so
I saw that she likes that she has big eyes, but.
So yeah, there's a little, I'll post it in the live chat in a second, but there's a little like identifier when I don't know why the Tyrant would be the one to focus in on this, but the Tyrant like has a readout, and it goes down to Claire,
God, yeah,
and it says something Lancome's dedication to women or something like that. You know,
that's got to be marketing for a product place. I
was like, it's clearly an ad or something. Yeah. But that was very funny. The Crocodile God, so freaking funny. The ranking system that makes no sense to the manhwa's own logic.
God.
when I saw that ranking system, I was like, oh, this is sick. They have like a hierarchy. I love a hierarchy. I love a ranking system, like a power level system. You know,
it makes sense in a piece of media like this where it's like, oh, we're going to go through this. We're going to like fight guys at the bottom and we're going to go up through the levels. It's like such a traditional like Asian storytelling thing where it's like we're gonna fight this guy and then the underboss and we're gonna wake away. Yeah, like I was like, okay, I'm down for this. This makes sense. And you're right, it absolutely doesn't make sense.
It doesn't because you all the time you see higher ranks getting the crap beat out of them by lower ranks. Like constantly, like nothing works. You know. Also, Leon's monster lover fantasy. Did you guys see that page? Did you see the page with G6? Was it G6? The end.
Oh god.
Him
Yeah.
using the G mutant as a throne. Like that was incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The best part is you've said a bunch of things that if someone's listening to it, like, what is going on? Like, you just like casually drop in the bomb that Sherry has superpowers and moves on. It's just so funny to me. But that's kind of what the comic does as well.
You can't add context. You can't.
I mean,
the context I can basically tell the listener is that moment where in RE2 you're playing as Claire, you're down in the sewer with Sherry and you have to kind of shepherd her from just a few rooms. She meets Sherry in like the fan duct where the cockroaches are, and the cockroaches are even in this, and so she's trying to get Sherry out of the sewer, and they get into one of the sort of main open areas where all the zombies are, and Claire's like, oh no, I've got to fight these zombies, and Sherry's like, no you don't, and she just has these magic powers which makes them all like docile and they just walk through. And I know for a fact this is going to come back in the further story, but we are like 20-something issues later, and it's not been relevant yet. She uses it once, and then that's it. They mention that she's the illegitimate daughter of Birkin.
Yeah.
Which, to what extent, isn't clear. Obviously, she must have his DNA. Yeah, it's almost like it's going to be an important thing, but we haven't reached that point yet. Obviously, she has William's DNA, because that's why, as G, he's still hunting her. But they never explain what that is or what it's for. I think it's coming back around. But it's so weird because they just throw stuff like this out and you're just like, okay, sure. The bit that made me go, oh, okay, this is going to be stupid in a fun way is they do Leon's backstory of his dad and how his dad died. And the flashback occurs because somebody says the word umbrella for the first time. I can't remember the context of it. And I think the idea is that this essentially replaces you reading the files in the game and putting together that umbrella are evil, because we can't do that in a manhwa. So instead we have Leon having a flashback where his dad gets shot by some random guy on the street who happens to have an umbrella beer can on him, and that's the impetus that Leon goes, we have to investigate them. That's hilarious. Genuinely laughed out loud. An incredible leap of logic. Somebody says umbrella and Leon goes, the guy that shot my dad was drinking from an umbrella beer can. It's all connected.
It was so Pepe de Silva. It was.
Isn't it like he offers him a drink and Leon's dad refuses, and then therefore is executed on the spot for it? Like,
you know the thing that makes that funnier is that I don't think it was in a city. They were just in the wild. They were just
somewhere. Yeah.
They were just in the open, like somewhere. And this guy just came up to it. Oh, it was so funny. But yeah. That was only half of what I was going to say about the story.
Sorry, go on.
But yeah, no, it was good. So yeah, like the story, it follows the basic of Footprints when it comes to the games. Please don't take it seriously, like when you go into it. But the thing is, I love about it is that the guys making this, you can clearly see that they had fun making it.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of passion there, and you can see it. But if I was to point out some negatives, some clear negatives, not just silliness, it is, you know, as I've said before, the manhwa doesn't take its own rules seriously. Sherry, I mean, you've just told me, but I put in my notes that Sherry doesn't reappear, like, despite light bombing everything. You know, the other thing is that Lickers are like the main antagonist, sorry.
They're following that liquor around, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, like, and then hundreds of Lickers appear out of nowhere as well, but that's later on. But yeah, the biggest thing, and like this will always be kind of, you know, everything is a punch bag for Leon.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
he's so cool and he can't be stopped unless the plot demands it.
Right, exactly. And it's like, you know, it's it's so incredibly frustrating. Like you mentioned earlier on, Steve, like he was in a secret service and then thought, oh yeah, I'll just work on the beat at RPD, huh? It's so odd, inconsistent, and it doesn't make sense,
I mean, cart before the horse. There's a time skip after RE2, everybody, where everyone's wearing a unique uniform because they're part of not the BSAA, right? And for reasons that are still kind of confused to me, Leon in this post-time skip where Raccoon's been obliterated and everything else, he puts his RPD uniform back on. Everyone's back in their traditional outfits, which I assume is due to like probably reader backlash as to why these characters not wearing their outfits. But
it does.
Strange.
It's and it just ended like away from Leon. Like there is. I think we've already kind of touched on it, but there's the problematic stuff. With labeling the Middle East as a terror center. And I think there were some messages being thrown there that were attempting to bridge a gap, but it really didn't work. And I think from issues 6 to 9, I think they realized that they maybe went too far because they just killed off those guys that implemented that, and we never heard about the CIA again.
It's so weird.
Yeah, they just went really ham with it.
Quote unquote terror group Sharia.
Yeah. I mean, that is legitimately, they came for people, and it's like, that's God, they were different times. And it's and this was before certain world events happened. But they were also my least favorite parts of that manhwa. I wanted to get by them as quickly as possible.
That was stuff. And the thing is, a lot of it, and I hope my synopsis kind of demonstrated this, it's not in the synopsis because it amounts to nothing. There's issues of them discussing, and they introduce you to this US wherever he was, commander or something like a high guard or high garden. He's not relevant at all. He never comes back.
Yeah, I forgot about him.
They make a big thing of it, and him talking to God and stuff like this, and it's just kind of nothing, which is just kind of irritating in the long run, because those are pounds and time that could be spent on characters that need them. If I were to give a genuine criticism of the first arc, it's incredibly stupid that Chris, Jill, and Barry turn up. How many of those 3 characters do you think get dialogue? It's just Chris. I don't think Jill and Barry said a single thing. And then when we get into arc 2, they're just gone. They're just maybe they come back at some point. I don't know, but they're there just to shadow Chris. And you guys just talked about how everything becomes Leon's punching bag, and he's the main character. And that is absolutely true of where we're going from here into the next arc. Chris becomes the secondary main character, and as I say, Jill and Barry are just missing, which is, in a vacuum, kind of boring and dull. But hilariously, in 2026, it's like, wow. Even back then, it was just like Leon and Chris and nobody else. It's like you have free reign to have your insane adaptation and do whatever you want with it. And they picked Leon and Chris of all things, which is kind of funny in a not very funny way. My only other notes on the story for this bit, I'll just drop them in now, is that where did I put it? So adaptations, I like the idea of filling in blanks and adding your own ideas, and some of it might be crazy, but you do it anyway. Like God being the CEO of Umbrella and his 6 tiers of staff. Okay, sure, whatever. We didn't have anything in 1998, so you can absolutely do that. But as James kind of alluded to, it doesn't make any sense. The Tyrant in this, as I said, is described as a mech soldier. Yeah. And he, as we find out, he was a guy at one point that was experiment on in some fashion. But he's Ada Wong's superior officer, technically. That's just really funny to me. There's this big hulking guy who just doesn't speak English or whatever, and we don't know what the level of his intelligence is, because in our minds as a reader, we know he's like this BOW who's got an objective to follow, and that's what his entire brain is focused on. But make sure you turn your report into the Tyrant mech. Is just funny to me. And there's this bit as well. I don't understand why it was we have a mole. Ada, I'm going to check your ear, and she's like, okay, what did you think was going to happen? They're going to find the earpiece. It's just very dumb. And the fact that she casually chats to Apex Warrior, via this earpiece, in the direct earshot of people whilst fighting G1, so she's probably like shouting it as well. And no one hears her because that would be inconvenient for the plot. It was just very funny to me. Steve, any more points on the first arc?
Why did all the tyrants, including the whale tyrant and giant metal tyrant, all have Easter Island heads? Which the Maui heads, I believe they actually say it in later on as like a mask, I guess. It's peculiar. Also, one literally suplexes not suplexes. They just tears a alligator's head off rather dramatically. Yet still can't beat Claire by smashing her into
Yeah.
Power scaling is weird in this game.
So weird.
Ben survives.
He does.
Yeah, he gets a complete visual overhaul. Like
glow up Ben.
He looks like Ben, and then later on, he's just some dude in a yellow jacket who's also named Ben Bertolucci. He makes it out alive somehow. Brian Irons plays like a more significant threat, I feel like, but then gets jobbed off by Tram Glass. Like, it's so strange. Considering he's like the inciting gunman in terms of shooting Birkin. Still don't understand even now why God does what he does in this comic in both arcs. And he has his own little flunky called Joker, who's this little conniving guy in a stealth cloak. These original characters are a bit strange, and I don't know if I care for them. But yes, President Clinton's in it, so Birkin, I feel like we kind of got robbed. Like,
I agree.
When we see him, he does do Birkin-like things mostly, but they actually tease like almost a man-spider-like transformation in the initial issue. I'm kind of we get robbed because that looked like it was going to be sick AF, and then he's just the Birkin we know until he's caressingly on gently in his mouth.
And we go from G1 to G2 for like a couple of pages, and then straight to G5. It's just such a shame. And at this point where we are in terms of our reading, he's not reappeared or been relevant to the story because of the time skip and Raccoon being blown up. G-Virus is like the running storyline thread for the entire Biohazard 2 Manhua, as it should be, because it's obviously the kind of heartbeat of the game. So it's just kind of a shame that we do the William Birkin story, but you kind of said, Steve, like Brian Irons is a way bigger threat and kind of central figure to the plot than Birkin is, which is just a bit odd. James, any more thoughts on this arc before we move on?
Nah.
All right, let's do it. And now, reading the file, Kurt's Notebook from Resident Evil Outbreak File 2, Maverick Bates.
The more I find out about that hospital in the mountains, the more unsettling the whole thing becomes. Details about mysterious patient deaths are never reported, and details on drug suppliers and routes are buried too deeply to uncover. There's no doubt that the local pharmacy chain Drugs Inc. is entangled in the mess as well. The trail is getting harder and harder to follow. What can I do to get to the bottom of this mystery? I've devised a plan. First, I must collect as much evidence as I can. It's likely that experimental drugs are being illegally tested in that hospital. I need to get my hands on some of those drugs and get out. With hard evidence like that on my side, they won't be able to deny anything. But I'm not up against amateurs. I must exercise caution. Tomorrow night, I'm going to pay the hospital a little visit. It could be dangerous, but someone has to show them that money and influence isn't the only kind of power out there.
Let's get into it, because, dear listener, if you thought that was insane, we're about to go into some whole other dimension. This is a lot of reading. A lot happens in the second arc. So, again, please bear with me. I've tried to make this as clear as possible. So, from issue 15, we begin the Arcs of the 12 Holies arc and are introduced to the Artificial Island Asia, aka AIA, or just Artificial Island, and the BHST, which stands for Biohazard Special Operation Team. This one definitely doesn't stand for that. That's not how it works, but okay, whatever, it's fine. A delivery of crates called the Ark of the 12 Holies has arrived from Raccoon City on the island, and Mr., who again is the super tyrant who can speak and has like consciousness now, escapes from one of the crates. The BHST, which is essentially the BSAA, who is Chris, Claire, Leon, and Dina, who is one of Leon's squad mates from the SFU. They also arrive on the island, which is this weird cyberpunk island. Elsewhere, God is now a brain in a jar, hiding in a cemetery. After an attack on his location, which releases the T-virus, he attaches his brain to the spinal cord of a soldier to get a new body. The BHST team investigate Inshaki, who is the richest man on the island and the owner of apparently the most perfect human body, because they believe God will want him as his new physical form. Additionally, we're introduced to the underworld mob boss Landbug and her love Asura, the prized battle Colosseum warrior, who are searching for artificial hearts to give themselves a better, longer life. Asura is approached by God, who offers these to him in exchange for his assistance. Expecting God to strike at the finals of the island's battle Colosseum, which is this Beyblade trial by combat thing, Inshaki will be there to present the winner a trophy. The BHST group gather. Dina is grabbed by God's right-hand man Joker. Leon attempts to rescue her on top of a moving cargo train and succeeds, swearing that no harm will come to his friends after the trauma that he's been through losing Ada Wong. God indeed does attack the final match of the tournament, stealing Inshaki away with the assistance of Asura, who is infected now with the G-virus and transforms into a lion-like monster and kills Landbug in the process. Realizing what he's done, he eventually surrenders to his own death. Elsewhere, Mister seemingly intercepts God's attempts to put his brain into Inshaki's body. A month later, we're not even remotely done. A month later, the BHST team finds the 11 missing umbrella crates, which are now obviously known as the Ark of the 11 Holies, which made me laugh. And one of these is marked Ada. Meanwhile, Inshaki's body is discovered by a group of kids in the slum, and they hope to turn him in for a reward. The Apex Warrior, who's the Spawn lookalike, arrives on the island with the Outstanding 10, a group of Umbrella soldiers who seemingly transform when necessary for missions via sockets in their chest. Each is given command of a different element, so fire, earth, water. We also have gold, beast, demon, and some stuff like that. The group destroys the BHST base, and I might be pronouncing this incorrectly. Zhu, the leader, traps Leon in a cage and shrinks him with magic. Bido and Charlie from Leon's old team arrive to fight him off. The Apex Warrior places a drone bug inside of Leon and confirms that Ada is alive in one of the crates. He strikes a deal. If Leon gives him the card key to the room where the 11 Holies are contained, he'll guarantee that Ada is safe. Leon returns to the base. Chris takes him to the mass grave of all the 500 soldiers who died in the fight with the Outstanding 10, and challenges Leon to a fight to be captain and for the card key to the 11 Holies. Leon wins this fight, but he disappears into a drunken stupor and eventually meets with the Apex Warrior. However, instead of deciding to work with them, he drops explosives and discovers, as Apex mask burns off, that he's Leon's father, thought dead after being shot in the head by an Umbrella goon. God, eventually revealed to indeed be inside the body of Inshaki, goes on television to place the rise in crime and destruction on the shoulders of the BHST, telling occupants of the island to do what they see fit to demonstrate that those people are not wanted here. Leon, clinging to life because of the explosion, is placed in the ancient biochemical evolutionary device, a technology from an ancient civilization, which the team just suddenly have. The drone bug explodes inside of Leon, infecting him with G. He transforms, but then keeps his consciousness and transforms back into human form. The BHST's tech guy, who we've not mentioned so far, is called Microsoft, by the way, speculates about this ancient device and the group's sacred weapons and where they originated from and what it all means. So he, Bido, Leon enter a gap in the Great Wall of China and enter a location referred to as Different Space. That's the end of the 12/11 Holies arc. Oh my God, James, What the hell is this?
So you get introduced to Asura, who's just like this peak of a warrior man, and you're seeing a trend here. You got Leon peak, you got Asura peak, you've got Apex Warrior peak, you've got God peak of peaks, you've got, there's a lot of testosterone, in these pages, like an incredible amount. But man, does it look good? It looks so good. It was at this point, none of the story, I didn't care about any of what was happening. I was just reading what I was reading. It wasn't Resident Evil anymore. We were just following this downtrodden hero who can't be killed. If you haven't figured out you're in for a ride at this point, then you're glutton for punishment is what I'm saying. It feels like
stop laughing.
It feels like you're swept away to a faraway land, and you kind of are here. Like, you've now entered this arena of a story that is purely about Levi S. Kennedy and the Survey Corps fighting against God on an island land forgot in their chase for the best man that ever lived, or whatever. I don't know. That's no exaggeration. That's what it is. That's what it is, and I loved it. Mostly, it wasn't Resident Evil. As you can probably tell, this meant to be the story section, but I'm not going to go into the story, because it was just boss fight battle to boss fight battle, throughout the entire thing. How do we, there were twists and turns, but they were very obvious. And there was also one moment with Asura. So they're trying to kidnap, as Sai said, the best man that ever lived. Asura's trying to kidnap this man to give to God so he can inhabit the body snatcher style, and become the best man that ever lived, become the billionaire that he once was, to become another billionaire.
Just like real life, billionaires have to assume the body of another billionaire to thereby carry on their lineage.
To be a billionaire.
It's just insane.
And it's but it does have my favorite panel in the Manhua, though. And I say this because it reminded me that this is Resident Evil for a moment. And it was when, I think it was T that was introduced to the artificial island, right? And there's this panel of, it looked very much like Raccoon City. There was this panel, you see all these zombies who are piling up. It's at the beginning of one of the issues. The Battle for Artificial Island, I think it was called, actually. And you see all these monsters, these zombies lining up, and they fight against the guards of Artificial Island. And I think the SFU, actually, the Special Forces Unit. And it was very cool because it reminded me of Raccoon City again. But then you go into the panels later on, and I was like, oh, sweet, the zombies are back. And then they weren't, because now you're fighting 100 lickers again.
Literally 100 lickers.
Yeah, literally. It's like, it was so funny because I remember Leon in that panel, because this, by the way, we haven't mentioned Dina yet, but we might go into characters.
Yeah.
This obvious just stand-in for Leon's horniness, and it was awful, right? But she gets kidnapped, and then she gets put on a spike on a train, and then Leon goes to save her because I'm a man of justice or whatever. And then he kills 1 or 2 lickers, but then after he saves her, 100 lickers just turn up out of nowhere. They're just out of nowhere. It's a constant fight. And I think the biggest crime of everything so far, there has been absolutely no horror.
Yeah.
No horror at
Especially
all.
at this point. At this point, it's just completely gone.
Here's your Alien reference. Okay, there is a way that you can make a comic strip, visual novel, scary. Slow burn, just like the movies, So, and just like Resident Evil, it's always a slow burn. The first parts are always the scariest. You don't know what's going to come out. There hasn't been any of that up to this point.
And we're never going to get it now.
Nah.
It's too far off the rails.
In the Alien comics, they would tease an incredible panel, of just something in the dark, you would just see a shine or a shade or something. There's none of that in this. There's no like, oh, I need to look closer to see, oh, what is that? What? No, everything is in broad daylight. Absolutely, absolutely no horror whatsoever. Yeah, and as I say, like, you can't talk about the story because it's so cookie cutter and so like, it feels almost gross to talk about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. So I'm going to let my colleagues take over.
I have a lot to say about this arc. I will say that much. You're right. The moment, like the Resident Evil 2 portion ends, and you're like, okay, where are we going to go next? And you could have given me 100 guesses, and I would never have guessed this. The fact they just go. So anyway, there's this artificial island that is in the middle of like all these Asian countries, and they've all agreed that like it's like a safe space for everything, but also there's a lot of crime and and you get there and it's Blade Runner, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? There's a bar, they all go in a bar, and there's a bloke who looks like Android 16 from Dragon Ball Z. I was like, what is happening? Leon calls a cybernetically engineered man, enhanced man, whatever, in the first issue of this arc, robot, like it's a slur. And I was like, what the hell am I reading? Every time I think, my God, what is this absolute garbage? It goes and pops me like a page later and completely just draws me back in. Issue 16 is where it completely goes insane. There's barely any Chris or Leon in it. It's Missa, I guess, is in a few pages, but mostly it's gladiatorial combat, star-crossed lovers between a warrior and a crime mob boss type god and his parasitic brainstem. How did we get here from Raccoon City? But then it does something incredible, and I'm like, yeah, Beyblade gladiatorial combat, this is awesome. Like, you're right about the horror, but at a certain point I just had to let it be what it was.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't get away from the fact that this is clearly what they wanted. It almost felt like, when I was reading the Resident Evil 2 stuff, it felt like they almost had some like, oh, it's an honor to be working on Resident Evil 2, excited to do this with the characters and that. But when we get to this point, it's like, oh, this is this is really what we want to do. And all these obvious touch points and stuff that they're riffing on, and the fact that it looks like, you know, the characters look like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure characters, and it looks like Blade Runner, and it looks like all these movies and stuff. Like, they're just having dumb fun. So yeah, I would just found myself laughing at just so much of the absurdity. Sure, Asura becomes a lion because the G interacts with like your psyche, and that he thought of himself as a lion. Sure, fine, whatever. There's a whole bit where it's like, oh, on this island full of like robotically enhanced people, somebody says a complete human body is a status symbol. Like that's a serious line of dialogue, as if we weren't just set in the real world just a few days later in the timeline.
Literally,
cyborgs didn't exist. And I always wonder about a lot of this sci-fi thing where it's like, in this city, you know, what about outside of these cities? You know, what's the world like outside of like the cyberpunk city from all the movies and stuff? Is it just like a big desert? Is the world like this all over? But we know the world isn't like this all over because we were just in it. We just saw President Clinton. So I don't know about a complete human body being a status symbol. Every other person in the world has a complete human body. It's just you nut jobs on this island that are blading into each other and cutting each other's limbs off. I couldn't. The pure principle of this is what made it so funny. I don't know if it takes itself seriously or not, so I choose not to take it seriously.
Yeah.
My single favorite bit in this entire comic is in this arc. Leon goes through the edgy character arc coming out of Raccoon with what's happened to Ada and various things along the way. And it talks about him being a drinker and stuff like that. And he has fights with Chris, and he quits and he rejoins and all this stuff. When he gets the card key and he goes away to make this decision about whether or not he should free Ada from the cage and stuff like that, it says Leon doesn't like beer normally, but now it's bitter and he's bitter, so maybe they have something in common. And then it cuts to... It cuts to Mr. X, who is sad because he can't open
He's got a can in his hand and he just can't do anything with it.
Big size god.
So absurd. I'm not. It's so funny. Oh, Steve, what did you make of this?
So yeah, we've transitioned from 1998 to the year 2000X, hopefully. Although I think it's only a few months later. We've gone from somewhat kitschy Resident Evil to 2000 AD meets Blade Runner meets 90s anime meets 80s anime, and anything that can be pastiche will be. It goes from being trying to figure out what these the 11 holies are, to Leon beating up someone just because he's mad, bad, and dangerous to know with his lightning tonfa that becomes a lightning lance tonfa that can make electric fields because he's so cool. It's just the fact that it has to take time to explain a cyborg when we've already seen tyrant mechs and all this other nonsense just takes me out. The purpose of God, the main villain of the previous arc, Big Bad Mr. Umbrella, taking his own brain out so he can parasitize another man's body. I was about dying then. Then it goes into a full-on Guyver-esque Goku fighting the big bads arc, where you go to fight the 10.
My God!
The 10 outstanding guys or something. Yeah, that's
10
it.
Outstanding guys.
Yeah, they're just the Zoa Lords from Guyver. They've got gimmick powers, and I don't think they haven't beaten them all at the point where we've read, but they obviously just fantastic jobbers for Leon or someone to blitz through.
Yeah, they killed 500 soldiers, but Leon will probably take them down in a single punch.
Yeah, exactly. Bato from Ghost of the Shell shows up again. He manages to fight one and not die. There we go. It's if you were at the start of this podcast listening to the Cregger stuff and getting upset that it's set in the snow, but by golly, sir, son, madam, this is
that one shot that upset everyone of the overweight tyrant sitting in the sewer. If in the final cut of the movie, if he's not sad because he can't open a can of beer, then I'm walking out the cinema.
Yeah,
right.
The same cannon,
American flag cape. I will say, like, seeing Mr. Low key, pretty cool BOW, doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
it would be very fitting with we've always talked about in the real quote unquote real Resident Evil universe, the canonical one, if you like, that we always want to see the US government do more stuff. It would be absolutely bloody ridiculous, but I would take a Tyrant with a US flag cape at this point, because my God, it looks sick on the page.
Steve, do you know what he gives? He gives Starscream.
No, that's to me, right? Apex Warrior, right? In my literal notes, he looks like Cobra Commander. His internal voice is Starscream.
Oh,
and then they reveal he's Leon's dad. Like, what?
Yes, the big reveal. Reveal.
So imagine big scary man just speaking with a harpoon of a voice. Just okay. You cannot take this as anything beyond the most entry-level drama. Like, I did feel a bit for poor Landbug, seeing her beloved Asura go completely balls to the walls mad in this last big race where it's all a trap for Elon Musk, or whatever his name is.
They do.
Yeah, and she gets completely pancaked with a singular slam, having finally gotten their dream item, these artificial hearts to live forever. And
I really liked that part, actually. That was very sweet. The artificial hearts is really nice.
In a vacuum, in a separate universe where this is just some kind of pulpy cyberpunk story about Asura and Landbug getting artificial hearts and get screwed over by the corporations. That is cyberpunk fiction in a nutshell, isn't it? Getting screwed over by bigger people. And that just feels like we've got Leon and the rest of these people just parading around it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, notice we haven't mentioned Barry or Jill yet, by the way.
Yeah.
They're not here.
We hadn't mentioned that, we were talking about liquors and BOWs briefly. Right, and the 10 Zoa Lords, the outstanding 10. There is a singular traditional Resident Evil bioweapon that gets just a severed head in a jar. The way that the BSAA or the BHST get funded in this is Chris shows a hunter's head in a glass orb to Bill Clinton and basically goes, "Gives funding, mate."
God, that's a sentence. That's a sentence. Chris Redfield shows President Bill Clinton a hunter in an orb.
And we know from the Code Veronica manga that he probably punched that hunter's head clean off. So.
They aren't the same continuity, surely, right? Chris is that Chris has a hairstylist, and this is just Paul Phoenix.
Yeah, he doesn't look like him at all, does he? He's blonde various points and then not. It's bizarre.
Changes it.
Yeah, there's stuff. I kind of have to like this. It was a bit of a slog to get through, but when it commits to the stuff that, as I say, it wants to do rather than fanny around with Resident Evil stuff, there is some earnestness to it, even if it is overdone and ridiculous and over the top. There are some genuine, if you let it take you, there are some genuinely cool moments, especially towards the end. There's, I think it's Leon and Dina are standing in the rain, and suddenly Leon says, "Wait, why isn't the rain hitting you?" to Dina, and it's because Joker in his stealth cloak is standing right over her. And so I was like, that was genuinely quite a clever, cool moment. And then immediately following that, we get this final gladiatorial showdown. Asura rips a rod out of his leg to beat someone with. Cool moment. That is a genuinely cool thing. He has to grab Enshaki to, like, you know, he wants to steal him away for God. He gets that hand cut off, so he grabs the wires coming out of it with his other hand. Genuinely cool moment. I was like, okay, you have an understanding of what you want to do right here. Some of it's kind of, again, like, there was a lot of stuff through this where I was like, oh, you've actually, like, predicted the games here. Like, what the hell? God explains at one point that the Umbrella funds have been blocked or frozen. Again, predicts the steps that the games will take eventually. I was really shocked by that. The delivery virus drone bug in Leon's vein. Yeah, this series has done everything that the games and movies wind up doing, because that is in Death Island. We should probably consult this thing for the plot of Resident Evil 10 at this point.
No. Oh, no.
Outside media as well. Mad Bull, the guy that Asura fights in combat, says the Spider-Man line, "I got you for 3 minutes." He literally says it. Enshaki at one point says, "Danger? I am the danger."
Does it?
Surely that's got to be a quote-unquote translation.
That's the fan translation, right? I can't believe that is a genuine line in the original text. But yeah, because it was so outstandingly insane, I had to enjoy parts of it. I can't get away from the fact that at times, even though, James, you said there is definitely stuff in earlier issues that makes sense later. Like, there's the Claire page where they're talking about her future outfit, and she's got like a thing on her back for truth detection. I can't think of the word. Polygraph.
85% accurate.
Right, pretty good. Pretty good. We just trust what it says. But the problem is that a lot of the time it doesn't feel like there's a plan at all. Like 5 or something covers in a row tease the return of Ada on every cover, and it does make no progress towards that. The sacred weapons get introduced, which is just random anime guff. In the first issue they're in, you see one of them, it's like this big thing on Baidu's back. It's great. In the next issue, when they've explained the sacred weapons, it's suddenly gold, because they're all gold colors. Enshaki at one point says somebody says about him, I think, that he's never been photographed, but he's the richest man on the island, apparently the most beautiful man in the world. He steps out on stage to present an award. Towards the end of the run, he's on television telling the island to, take their anger issues out on Chris and co. But he's apparently never been photographed. It's just stuff like that where it just doesn't, it's kind of nonsense. And I got the feeling they were just Wallace and Gromit putting the track down as they went with this sometimes. But occasionally I didn't hate the ride. James, any more points on Arc 2?
I feel like I should say more, but it's just so ridiculous. Like, Enshaki went on the TV. I mean, he went on the TV because he wasn't Enshaki anymore, was he? He was
right. It's God. Yeah,
he was God, and God is arrogant, apparently.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Enshaki wasn't exactly a peach, but
no, like there was a very cool moment. Again, there were just like glimmers of goodness, of moments where I felt connected to the page rather than just laughing at the page. And that's a different kind of joy. Like, I'm laughing at the page because I'm enjoying what's on there because it's so bombastic. And there are other moments where I'm looking at the page and going, "Aw," you know, like there was like when they found Inshaki after he just got body snatched by God, and he was trying to, his brain was in a, I don't know if his brain was in a little bit of a muddle or not, but I'm going to assume it was in a bit of a muddle at first. And he was with those kids, and yeah, but then at the end of it, it kind of ruined the whole thing because he ends up MSNing somebody that he's actually God, and I've got these very sweet kids, and I'm safe, by the way. It's like,
yeah, it's so random.
Yeah, and it was, yeah, so it's like I really enjoyed what preceded that, but then when it got to that point, I was like, no, I wanted to see some kind of transition there. And then we got this weird transition when he's had his, you know, maniacal "I am God," you know, and smashes the window. Those two kids are behind him and they seem to be completely brain dead.
Yeah. Like,
that was really sad, but we had no idea how that happened.
Yeah.
You know, they were just, you know, they were just incoherent. I think it was mentioned in the comic. There are a lot of stuff that is like, I would like for it to be explained, but at the same time, in my head, I was going, you know what? Capcom don't do it. Capcom don't do it. So why should this memoir? Yeah. You know, it's like, we'll give you questions, but we won't give you any answers. It's just what's something that's larger than jumping the shark? Because
jumping the whale tyrant.
Yeah, jumping about 10 whale tyrants like in a row. Yeah, or maybe the 40-foot tall liquor that's at the end of Act 2. Oh my God. You know, for some reason, and they're in the Land Before Time. Yeah. Oh God, you're going to see freaking Littlefoot at some point. Yeah, but other than that, yeah, it's just so much happening here that I don't really have anything more to add to the story. It's just so bombastic.
Steve, any last notes on Act 2 before we move along?
We end on Leon somehow being infected with the G virus and also being passively evolved in this kind of ancient future tech. Just saying that sentence alone is boiling my brain. And you know, where do we go from here? Prehistoric hidden lands inside the Great Wall of China. So I'm waiting for Lara Croft to show up. Yeah, no, really. We pastiched so many other things. It's possible, right? Yeah. I feel like the second half of this manhwa, we will rapidly go from, well, we've left Resident Evil in the dust. Yeah.
Even literally says that, doesn't it? It will go even further away from the world of Biohazard 2.
Yeah. I must state to the readers, like, I don't hate this, but I'm also like, it's just bamboozling, because there are parts where occasionally a small glimmer of the future of what we know of Resident Evil, like my colleague just said, sometimes they've seen through the veil and know where it's going to go, like some bizarre reference that they possibly couldn't have made. That stuff's amazing to see, and occasionally the more 2000 AD meets manga meets all that pulpy comic stuff coalescing is nice. I'm just waiting for the actual superheroes to show up, because we've already got a league of supervillains now.
Yeah. This is true. They're all going to get superpowered because they're all in the ancient device, I guess. So there's probably a thing that's going to happen. Let's talk a little bit. We'll do just kind of like some basic stuff on characters and BOWs, because we're running a little bit long for what this is. But let's talk a little bit more about character notes. I've got a few bits and pieces about a few characters throughout. I think the most important one to call this out for, regardless. I know this is 1998. I know the origin of this manhwa, so I'm not surprised, but it is unfortunate that there are no female characters of any value in this at all.
Yep.
Ada Wong in this dies begging Leon for a kiss, and then Dina falls for him as well. So, I don't think he's ever actually shown to feel the same way about either of them particularly, but there is that. Landbug starts off as a mob boss for like one issue, seems like an imposing threat, and then she's moved away from that completely and is just part of a love story, and it's fine for what it is, but it is just kind of a shame. Claire in the RE2 portion for me is a better adaptation than the remake did, not unsurprisingly. But after that point, she might as well not exist. I think, probably gets about 6 lines throughout the entire second arc. She's just a bit of a background character. So that's a shame. On the Ada Wong thing, they did more for Ada Wong's backstory than they have in the last 30 years of video games, though.
Yeah.
Even though I don't feel particularly, I'm not a fan of Ada Wong, I don't often go with the standpoint of she should never have come back, but I think in the first arc of this, they do a great job of using her as an example of the tragedy of the outbreak. And she dies, and then her remains are lost in the fire. And it's kind of implied that it's going to haunt Leon for the rest of the run. I kind of maybe would have liked if they'd have kept that, but they're almost certainly going to bring her back in the comics like they did in the games. There you go. Chris is kind of hilarious because he's all over the place. One of his lines is, "I have a bad feeling about this, like the balance of our world may change to a darker era," said the bloodthirsty Chris Redfield, who just a few months ago was making puns about the root of the problem in the Spencer Mansion. It's a weird choice that they make him that guy. It's very funny that they say God has a net worth of $100 billion, which probably felt like a crazy amount of money at the time, but in today's day and age, whatever, I guess. And I implied it before in regards to God, but genuinely, why not, to be honest? By RE2, we didn't have anything on the background of Umbrella. We wouldn't get that until the likes of Code Veronica, Zero, Resident Evil 5. We didn't even have Spencer, really, since Survivor wasn't out. We had Spencer Mansion. We didn't know what that meant. So why not? Why not? Yeah, sure. The CEO is called God. I'm fine with it. Whatever. If that's their interpretation of Umbrella, then sure. Leon is wildly inconsistent, of course. He gets to be miserable for a while. But then there's that bit where he saves Dina from the train, and it feels like it's meant to be kind of his resolution to letting Ada die and all this. Well, not letting Ada die, but feeling the blame for it. And it kind of works for me as a wrapping up of like, see, I've saved someone. And he's even like, I'm not going to let anything happen to my friends. But then he starts drinking again because somebody says the word Ada, and it's like, oh, okay. I did like that the comic essentially dragged him. It was like, Leon's boring moral concept is what killed Ada Wong. Very, very funny. The only genuinely nice thing about the Leon arc, I don't know if this is coincidental or on purpose, but when the reveal happens about his dad's name was Paul, which I thought was a nice nod to Paul, her dad, perhaps. Maybe that's where they got it from. And in a lot of cases, when it comes to Asian writers writing about the US, they name characters after things in other media. We know that firsthand with Resident Evil, for better or for worse. A lot of the characters in the first game are named after actors or porn stars, as it's gone on record.
Sick.
So it would, right? It wouldn't surprise me if they decided to call Leon's dad Paul in this after his voice actor's name, which at the time would have just been a fun Easter egg. But obviously now, with Paul, her dad, no longer being with us, was actually, I can't believe, an actual touching moment for me in this insane comic book series. So that was quite nice to have that little moment there amongst all the chaos. James, how do you feel about the characters?
Chris Redfield, who was this?
Some guy in it.
It's like the memoir portrays him as this guile-like, anger-ridden anti-hero. Like I think they literally describe him as being angry all the time. Like it was. Yeah. It's nothing like the stoic leader we know in the games, and this is coming from somebody who doesn't really like Chris that much past RE1, but I do at least see shadows of him like in the later games. But I feel this memoir like assassinates him. Like his character and who he is. He's constantly pressed and he's defeated by Leon in every way. There's this fight that happens between them both at near to the end, and I have no idea why it just happened. It just did. I
think it's one of those examples of like, let's just do something cool visually, genuinely.
Yeah, and it was cool to look at, but don't understand why. And as you said, you hit the nail on the head with the women. I've just put the women in like one category because every woman in this memoir is one-dimensional. And other than incredibly Ada, but she was then relegated to someone in love with Leon, like all the rest of the women have been. They didn't do this with Claire though, but she just became a background character, like you also said, Si. So it's like, because they couldn't do anything with her, she just became a non-character. They barely touched on her. Again, Ada's backstory was super welcome. Like, whether it be canon or not, like, I could see it be handled a bit more sensitively, but like, it was also, I liked it. It's like, it was nice to have a little bit more about Ada, and it was believable. But there was this weird moment with Ada where she had this heel turn moment, but her inner monologue didn't match to her actions.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there was like a mistranslation or something wasn't, or there was a localization issue here, right? But she was saying stuff in the positive for Leon and wanting to be in a relationship or pursuing something with Leon. And then she did the exact opposite. And it didn't make any sense to me. And I was like, oh, this is weird. Leon, Mr. Plot Armor, like, you don't really get, like, you don't really get a full breadth with how much of a boner Capcom and the Resi community have for Leon until you venture into any media with him, apparently. Like, as with the RE2 remake and OG, like, I really grew to like him immediately at the beginning, and I did at the beginning of this comic as well, but then he just becomes a tool on the page, pretty much, and everyone just becomes like an accessory to his tool. And because of this, I didn't like any of the characters. Because like, they just became unlikable, or I couldn't get connected with them. It just felt like a pure power fantasy, and then like there was some of those moments where it would bring you back to what you like, it would try and make you care, but by this point already too much has happened. Barry and Jill just being forgotten, but I suppose it follows with Capcom, to be honest.
Yeah, pretty much. I think you've really hit it there, where it's like everyone is kind of asking what's going on with Leon at any moment where he's not on screen, sort of thing, right? The fact that he has this team of friends from his special forces days before he joined the police, and they basically just exist as a bunch of characters to prop up Leon and be like, look, Leon's friends and he's cooler than all of them. It's just bizarre, isn't it?
We don't.
Steve, any thoughts? Sorry, go on.
Sorry, we don't hear any of why, like, there's no mechanism to why they all like Leon other than him being a part of the group. Like, there's no connection. There's no mechanism to draw from.
They did secret training missions, elite training missions for the events of Resident Evil 2 Begins.
Citation needed.
Oh, no, I think that's what they say in the actual little blurb about them at the start.
Yeah, I don't
is it?
Yeah.
He's 21.
I totally don't buy it too either. It seems like it's all a cover-up. He's probably not even be a real person. It'd be like a clone or something in the way this is going.
Yeah, probably, to be honest. He's God's clone or something. Yeah. Almost certainly.
As for, I think you pair have pretty much nailed it to a cross as to how I feel about the characters and their progression in the story, or lack thereof. Leon has the slightest bit of a downer arc, having lost Ada, but even then you don't really get a motivational why the F is he in Raccoon City to begin with. I mean, he just is. It doesn't really elaborate far into why it's his first day or anything like that. He's just here to, hi, my name's Leon, and I'm going to sort of enact the events of Resident Evil 2 for you on the page today. Which is, I guess, okay? Question mark. The villains get off a bit stronger. Like, I did like that conniving cloaky boy Joker every time I was on screen as just kind of smug git. And Apex Warrior is just, what are you, man? You are ridiculous. Everyone looks at Dana. She goes, what is my purpose? You like Leon. Oh my God. That's literally it, isn't it? She gets one cool bit where she fires a sniper rifle. Baidu is Bato from Ghost in the Shell, only dumber, and occasionally spouts Arnie lines. The only characters that have any real depth actually are in Act 2, and they both get killed off. That's, a little bit of romance and sadness that is Landbug and Asura. Which is wild to think about. I mean, Asura even gets payback on his actions. He brutalizes someone. Madball.
Madball.
Madball is his name. He brutalizes him in a prior race, and they get so cybernetically augmented. I'm pretty sure they're just ahead in a battle suit, you know, and he's like, as Sai's already said, you know, Asura has to break his own leg open to win that. Other than that, Chris Redfield is apparently here. I don't think I've ever seen Chris act like this before. Jill and Barry are cardboard cutouts.
Yeah.
Claire's okay for what time they give her in the RE2 portion. Otherwise, she's literally just the same as anyone else. She is just a background character to Leon's moping. It's surprisingly shallow after a certain point, just how bad the Leon worship.
Yeah, very much so. That is the big detriment for me. Even though I enjoyed some of the insanity of it, I had to flick through some of the moping as much as possible. Let's talk about the BOWs then, Steve. I'll start with you. What did you make of the way the creatures were brought to life? Both stuff from Resident Evil 2, which admittedly is quite limited, and the original ones for the series as well, or BCs, or what we're calling them.
The biocontaminants. I don't know if that's their name, but that's what I'm going with. Mostly okay. With a caveat that for a thing themed around zombies, they're like in like maybe 10 pages. Thing. Mostly, like Raccoon City is a literal ghost town for the majority of the time you're in Resident Evil 2 times. And even in the artificial island of Asia, there's like maybe 4 pages of zombies. It's surprising. It's mostly liquor time, and they do some cool stuff. Like that one liquor feasts on Leon's blood and evolves in a different way. And then some liquors cannibalize another liquor, Alien Resurrection file. That's your Alien reference from me.
I cannot believe it.
Yeah,
Gimmick infringement.
It eats.
I will be in touch with your lawyers.
That was kind of neat. While it is ridiculous, I did appreciate the Maui-headed tyrants, and the fact that they were giant bioweapons that just had a tyrant's head sewn on. Like, okay.
Every time they popped up on the screen, I had the funk, genre in my head.
Crocodile God. The phrase alone was like, wow, this is stupid in a cool way. But yeah, I want to see more of Mr. King of Killers. You know, he gets no page time, but he has aura, and the kids love that these days.
Yeah, we've kind of danced around whale mech, but again, a genuinely laugh out loud moment for me. For clarity, for people who haven't seen it, whale mech, yes, is a whale, a giant whale, with a teeny tiny tyrant stoic face at the front of its gum between like its 2 front teeth. It's unbelievable. And then it gets even funnier when it, again, like the other one, sort of starts remembering it's a man. Sad whale tyrant gum face is in my notes. It's just an incredible, like, what the hell am I looking at moment. James, what do you feel about the monster designs and stuff?
Arguably, I think they're the stars of this memoir, to be honest. Like, they, each one is comedically ham. Every one of them is, if you could imagine, a BOW in Resident Evil turned up to 11. Like, I've never seen so many tyrants in one room. You've got rhino tyrants, you've got normal tyrants, shark tyrants, whale tyrants. You can fit a tyrant's face on it. It could be a tyrant in this manhwa. Like, and then there's God, literal God. I don't know. It's I don't know if I would love to see the translation of the word God in the Chinese. I don't know. Like, if it is God, then that's fantastic. But I'm wondering if there are any kind of extra branches off the straight translation. But yeah, God being the biggest bad of the manhwa, their importance is constantly referenced to us throughout the first 2 arcs. As I said earlier, really you're learning about his backstory, but it also doesn't really make much sense. And as I said earlier, he's going from billionaire to, I guess, billionaire again, and then another billionaire. It's so, I guess it's really weird. The manhwa tries to explain it, but I remember, can't remember the precise reason, but I remember the manga trying to explain it and then me going, okay. All right, okay, whatever. But yeah, it didn't feel like it was worth the hassle. But yeah, it just like God, it just felt like another roadblock. Like, it was just another roadblock, smaller roadblock, and then until eventually we get to a brick wall of him, I imagine, at the end of this, which is going to be at the beginning of time. I'm guessing that we're gonna go to space. We're gonna go to the beginning of time, and Leon is going to create a new universe.
Yeah, the Leon verse.
Right. I
It's
mean,
Mortal Kombat 11.
Yeah.
we already live in it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Tend to be not a fan of most of it, frankly. This was the thing that didn't do much for me. The liquors, I think, overall look great. They're like sort of deep shadowing on them kind of keeps them scary in the early goings, sort of. And they've got their sort of well-defined shape down. And as Steve mentioned, the idea of them like transforming because they're feasting on each other and stuff, implying that these are G bacteria, is like quite a clever thing because it sort of plants the seed of the transformation aspect of G virus, which hasn't really been a major thing in Arc 2, but whatever. Other than that, though, you know, Mad Bull's second form got mentioned there. Completely impossible for me to understand what it was. It's like this. It's described as a behemoth, but I don't know. It looks like a metal horse, but we never really get a clear view at it. There's no big art page on it, unlike other creatures, which is kind of a shame because I had no idea what I was looking at. One of the outstanding 10, called Mo, looks like a cross between a Verdugo and a Cenobite. But he has a small head on his mask where his mouth should be for some reason. And also, we mentioned magic. It's not magic. It's a hallucinogen. Don't worry about that. It's all grounded in science. It's a hallucinogen, not magic. Anyway, Charlie's going to show up now with his sword and swing a wave of energy at the guy. What? I think Outstanding 10 looked garbage, frankly, just generic as hell. One of them looks like a mad scarecrow. Okay, it's just random guff. It doesn't feel like it fits Resident Evil.
It went very animated.
Generally, yeah, which wouldn't necessarily be a problem if not for the fact that they have this obsession with liquors and the stark contrast between how a good creature design in the liquor looks compared to we had to make 10 designs in 1 week, which is probably quite literally what they had to do. Is galling, but there we go. Let's wrap this thing up. Let's do a little bit of a conclusion. How do we feel about it overall? Did we have a good time reading Biohazard 2, the Manhua? I suppose my starting gambit is that I've never laughed so hard on a podcast before, clearly, so I got something out of it. James, what are your final thoughts on Biohazard 2, the Manhua?
If you are a long-time fan, _italicized bold, you should not read this comic. No, I did have fun with it. It was a lot of fun, and I am looking forward to seeing what happens next. Like we were introduced to this 40-foot tall liquor, and I'm just very interested to see what happens next. That says something. I have a lot of criticism about it, but it's like it. But if you can separate it from Resident Evil. Other than kind of what, it feels like going to a stand-up show, a little bit, occasionally something will just pop you and you're like, yeah, I need to go back to this one. I really did enjoy my time with it, despite all my criticism. It's because I wanted it to be a bit more, and I don't think my questions will be answered, and that's okay. If we do continue this, I will treat it like I have been since Arc 2. Like I will treat it with as much reverence as the people who created it did, and it was just a good fun time, I guess, man. We just love beating the crap out of each other, in every page and fawning over and sucking the D of Leon.
Yeah, even though we've kind of maybe sounded critical, I think it's more, as Steve said, just kind of being flabbergasted by this whole thing and how absurd it gets. I'm kind of with you. I will be pacing myself next time. Yeah. Certainly. I made the mistake of thinking, I've got a week to read 29 issues of Manhwa. How bad can it be? Yeah, no, I think I need to take this at a slower pace than forcing myself through it, because when it's a slog, it is unfortunately a slog. But as you said, occasionally it has these bright sparks of mania that are just kind of just so ludicrously entertaining that I too am looking forward to seeing Leon ascend to godhood in Arc 3 and 4. Steve, how do you feel about this overall?
It does so many strange things. It does so many things wrong, but I just cannot help but enjoy it. Like, this feels like it's got heart and passion behind its madness, which, compared to something like the tie-in manga that we read for Infinite Darkness, it's night and day. Like I can reread some of these pages, and it's complete, like, it's nonsense, gibberish, and action. Like, Leon's taking on a licker with a knife. You watch some policemen with artillery cannons try and approach it, and they just get wiped. Like, his bulletproof, like, plot armor extends to him being able to beat things off with a tonfa. And, everyone else has got, like, full-on heavy artillery and 500 men die. Like, it's complete omnishambles of a plot. Like, admittedly, we are only halfway through, but all the things that we have seen lead to probably being, some kind of ancient, like, I don't want to say Assassin's Creed-y civilization stuff. Yeah. At least that's what it feels like with the ancient evolution machine. Mm-hmm. And so whatever semblance to Resident Evil is passing at this point, it's just another dude called Leon Kennedy who works at the ravishing police department.
The ravishing.
Yeah. I should point out as well, one of the tweaks of the fan translation was to change his name to Leon Scott Kennedy, because in the original Chinese, for whatever reason, he is repeatedly referred to as Leon Scoot Kennedy. So he is a different guy. Leon Scoot Kennedy.
I like the idea. Let's just delineate. He is Leon Scoot Kennedy. He fights like the Ginyu Force and stuff. He's I don't know what scale he has to get up against Goku, but he's damn sight closer than Paris Rocket at age 50. So yes, that one Daniel Craig quote of "I have no idea and I can't understand," it compels me though.
Yes, I'm going to leave with a quote as well, which comes directly from the Manhua. We haven't really talked about the 7 sacred weapons, these mysterious things that presumably came from the different space that we're going to look into as well. One was this thing that Baidu has on his back. It's like pressure punching thing. As I mentioned, Charlie turns up with this like gold sword that has like energy waves to it. It's anime nonsense. But the Manhua refers them as where the battle between good and evil is no longer comprehensible through technology nor common sense. And that is a perfect summation of this entire series, I think. No longer comprehensible through technology or common sense. The sacred weapons, a real thing in a real Resident Evil piece of media. Nothing else remains for me but to thank the panel, our contributors, and our community. Join us on the First Aid Spray Discord server to hear the show early, and check out our merch store or our Patreon to support the show. Don't forget that these and our social media links can be found at faspraypod.com. You can listen to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all good podcasting apps. And if you like what you hear, please do leave us a review where you can and spread the good word. Coming up for First Aid Spray, we'll be beginning our coverage of Zach Cregger's Resident Evil with our wish list for the movie ahead of its launch, and then, of course, doing a full spoiler discussion for the film as soon as we're able to after it arrives in late September. Thank you to the panel. You can follow us all on Blue Sky. I'm at Cy White, Steve is at FB Steve, James is at Moist Owlet OFF, and finally, thank you for listening and have a good week.
Did anyone else have a brief flash of blaming the Clinton years music when seeing Bill appear on page?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't sing it, Steve. Spotify will demonetize us.
Oh,
God, yeah. No, you're right.
Bill Clinton will come for us.
What was it? There was a thing. Oh, what was it? Oh, there was a Game Awards event, wasn't there, where someone jumped on and shouted Bill Clinton?
Yeah, that was
that was only a few years ago. Yeah,
wasn't it something to do with presenting something to Elden Ring?
Yes, it was.
I think so.
Yeah,
now we need someone to come on there and say Biohazard 2 Manhua. Absolutely.
Bill Clinton is everywhere.